we're going to use the engine hoist to put the turbo in. So quick recap from the last video. So I went through and did the trans brake wiring, put the drive shaft in, the front drive shaft, got everything pretty much underneath the truck done that I need to do. Now I'm going to work on building the crossover and getting the log manifold finished. So I do have the log manifold in place. It's tack welded in, and I have to finish welding it and build the crossover. So goal for the end of this day and this video will be to have that stuff finish welded and get the turbo mounted by itself, just hanging there. So let's do that. Priority is going to be getting this finished, and then I can kind of work on the downpipe and crossover at the same time with the turbo hung. This is a Fahler Speed and Performance DIY log manifold. So it basically has everything cut and in place, and I just have to kind of tack this up and finish it. It does have some pre-cut pieces on there, so I can kind of eyeball it, but I'll basically be able to measure this stuff and put my flange where I want it. I'm going to start by welding up this flange here. I'll probably use some stainless filler here, and then here I'll just use some regular ER70. I do have a spare engine here if I want to bolt it up to this while I'm welding. I also have a spare head, so I might just clean that up and put it on the table. That way I can bolt this flange down nice and flat when I weld around the runners. So I'm going to start welding on this, and then I'll come back. So I got the V-band all welded up now. So that's what it looks like all the way around. So I'm probably just going to use like ER70 S6, I think I have. 2 or 6 for the rest of them. This one is already done in mild, so I'll just do that. It's kind of a functional piece, and you're not really going to see a lot of it anyways because it'll be covered up, so I don't really think it needs to be too rainbowy, because you could probably use stainless filler and get the welds to like look better, but I don't really care too much about that. So now we'll get that nasty head out and put it on the table, and we'll start welding up the rest. I'm going to bolt it down before I even start to do these, because if you start to weld here, it could warp and maybe crack the welds. I'm just going to bolt the whole thing down. Tried to set up that arc lens so you could actually see the arc, but it's way too hard to get the right angle, and then a lot of this stuff I'm inside of a joint, so you can't really see the arc anyways with the camera. Okay, so I got the log all welded up to this point. So I think everything looks pretty decent. Just letting it kind of cool down. Almost all the way done. So now I'll put it on, I'll test fit it, and we can start mocking up where the flange is going to go. In an attempt to make this as dramatic as possible, we're going to use the engine hoist to put the turbo in. Obviously that's not the real reason, but it's kind of heavy, and I have to mock it up to weld the pipe in, to tack it in, to figure out where I need the thing to be. So that's why I'm doing it this way. Oh yeah, this thing's big. I wanted to try to keep the factory overflow tank, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. I don't think I am. So I did unbolt the coolant expansion tank here, so I'm probably going to move this thing over here. That'll be an easy fix because I just have to redo the line down there. The turbo's kind of in the right position right now, so it's probably going to be something like this. So looking at it there, it'll probably be about right here. I'm going to have to take the 5-inch and then neck it down pretty quick, or bend it down pretty quick, coming right out of the V-band. And I should be able to use the 90 coming right up, and then I'm going to have to add probably like 2 inches, and then I'm going to have the flange kind of at an angle like that. What that angle is going to allow me to do is kind of keep it away from these hoses here, so I don't have to bend a whole lot, because the flange will be out this way instead of sticking back like this. So I'm going to take this back out and start mocking up the rest of the manifold, and I'll tack it in place, and then we should be able to give it a test fit. Alright, so I'm going to use the plasma cutter. I've only used this plasma cutter like one time. I don't really need it for a whole lot. But it's kind of why I bought the plasma cutter, was so I could do stuff like this, put holes in thick pipe. It's kind of annoying having to drill holes or cut holes to connect tubes together for exhaust, so I'm going to use it on this. Okay, that's definitely not going to work. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know if it's the tip is bad or I only use it once. I really don't know how to use it very well, so that's probably half the battle. So I'm going to try something else. Alright, so I cheated a little bit. I just used the TIG and kind of melted a hole all the way around, so it should be good. I'll go through, clean that up, get the slag out of the tube, and then I'll weld it up. Alright, so I got 2 pieces cut here. So I ended up kind of making it into a little bit of a pie cut so I can angle the flange. And it's going to go right on top of this piece, and then it's going to have the flange on it. So it'll kind of be at that angle. It's a little bit weird to kind of mock this thing up, so I'm going to mark this thing, and then I'll bring it over to the bench, and then we'll start to weld on it. Right, so I got this thing bolted back up to the head. I did throw some tacks on, so I added the little extension pie cut piece, and I did 3 tacks on each. So now I'm going to bolt it back in, and then I'll try to bolt the turbo up and see if I like the fit. If I like the fit, then I'll take it back out and finish weld it. Okay, so here is the almost final position. The chain is loose, so it is kind of hanging on the flange right now. So there's the, I think, final position. I think I'm going to leave it. I feel like this is kind of the best compromise because it has about equal spacing around everything. I can get my fingers all the way around the exhaust housing. I have spacing all the way through here where the coil packs are. I have a decent amount of room from the fan. Depending where I put this, I should be able to make a nice loop around into the intercooler. The trick is probably going to be this section here and getting the downpipe to come down. I tried to set it up as low as I could get it so I can kind of go, you know, straight down or do a bend right out of the turbo. I'll probably do some of that like heat wrap stuff that you put around lines that has like the Velcro in it. Never really used that stuff. But might try that out there. Probably put a turbo blanket on. That's pretty tight right here. Well, we're almost there, so I'm gonna get that thing out. I'll put it back on the bench, I'll weld it up, and we'll bolt it in there with no chain on it. All right, well, the turbo is bolted in place now, and this is exactly where it's gonna stay. As I said before, I do have pretty good clearance on the front. I have enough room here to loop around, and I should be able to get into the intercooler pipe. I do have clearance all the way around. I'll probably put a blanket on it, and I should have plenty of room to go down. Looks a lot more promising if you look at it from the bottom side for where to run the downpipe. But I do have decent spacing away from the spark plug coil pack. I probably won't be able to use this fitting for my catch can, so I'll probably just put the regular fill cap back on. And then the only other thing I think I got to figure out is routing for this hose down here and where I'm going to put this thing. Alright, so I did some putzing around with this little expansion tank, and then when I was doing that I remembered I had this thing. So I bought this originally for the Banana Mustang that I had, and just never used it. It's been sitting on the shelf. It got kind of dinged up. Threads are dinged up in shipping, so I'll have to recut the threads. And I probably want to pressure test this thing because all the welds are like ground off of it on the corners, so it could be kind of thin, so I might want to pressure test it. But it would definitely fit in here a lot better than this big tank. It'll look a little bit nicer. Then all I would do is run this line here from the radiator to the bottom of the tank. Then I would be able to eliminate this Y fitting here that's going to the heater line. I would just run the heater hose straight to the pump and then could eliminate this whole hose here. Then I'd really have a lot of room here to just kind of do whatever I wanted. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So that stuff will be in a later video. I do got to do the downpipe, obviously, and the crossover. My plan is to do two 44 millimeter wastegates in the crossover. One, because I think it'll be a lot easier for placement and working with the thickness of the pipe to do a wastegate. And there's not really a whole lot of room up here, and this material is all a lot thicker. So like if I did it on the housing or did it on the manifold, that material is all a lot thicker, so it'll be a little bit harder to work with. So I think I'm just gonna put them in the crossover and see where that ends up. I'm also gonna order a new torch, so you can see all the electrical tape around it. It actually melted in here. It must have gotten too hot inside here from welding for so long, and it actually broke a piece of the rubber and it was leaking all the gas out. So I was welding, everything was going fine, and then I went to make another tack, or I went to start another arc for a different weld, and then it just like shot a bunch of crap all over because it wasn't getting any gas. It was all shooting out the sides. It's still usable, but I should probably just get another one. I also have all the parts I need for the drive shaft, so I'll probably do that after work tomorrow. Bring the stuff into the drive shaft shop, and probably by the time the drive shaft is done, I should be able to get the crossover done. So stay tuned for that stuff, and we'll see you in the next video.